player to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charlse Odongotho. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
A very warm welcome this evening, the 17th of November 2021, this Wednesday, a dark week for this country. We are going to be looking at the terror attack that took place yesterday, very unfortunate, and multiple blasts across Kampala. A number of people lost, and I'm told the latest information we are getting is that one more person has died, bringing the number of innocent Ugandans killed to 4, of course, plus the 3 reported suicide bombers, now 7 people who have died in those different blasts yesterday. We are going to be discussing that. My name is Charlse Odongotho. I have the panel already here. But let me say that we are going to be streaming live via YouTube and UBC Television UBC Television Uganda. That's on YouTube. Then you can join the discussion via the hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines, UBC Behind the Headlines, but also you can send a message to 0709602592. Let me repeat that. The phone contact you can send a message to, or a question or comment, is 0709602592. Before we start the discussion, before I introduce my guest, let me call for that clip that will usher us into the discussion.
The number of suicide attackers ably identified by security agencies in Uganda is now 6. 4 of these are suicide bombers who detonated explosives in Swift Safari bus along Mpigi-Masaka Highway, at the Central Police Station, Kampala, and Parliamentary Avenue, respectively.
We have managed to counter several bomb threats in this country. The numbers are above 150.
One was arrested during the burial of the late Deputy IGP, Lieutenant General Paul Lokech, and the other killed during his pursuit in YEC.
Like this one was shot, not in the head, not in the chest, was shot in the legs to incapacitate him from running. And indeed, he was arrested and he talked. Unfortunately, he died.
In less than 1 month, 5 bombs have been detonated, causing death to 8 people, including 4 suicide bomb attackers.
The bomb threats are still active, especially from suicide attackers. We believe there are still more members of these domestic terror cells, especially the suicide bomb squad.
There is a very, very strong likelihood that actually they are not suicide bombers, but they are manipulated. Carry this thing. For me, you take it to Y and we shall give you this money. And for them, they know that once he reaches there, they will detonate. They don't care about them even.
3 unknown men placed an improvised explosive device at Kurib's pork joint in Komamboga and left the scene, while another suicide bomber detonated himself 2 days later while on transit in a bus headed to Bushenyi.
Kuze nsubira ekite ekivuddeko accident ayinza okuba yabadde akiyina kubanga immediately olubuto lwabise.
All these terror attacks are linked to the Allied Democratic Forces setting base in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Bombings they are making is to make accountability for the money they are getting. They are there enjoying the money and using our children, manipulating our children, that when they die, they go to heaven.
Over 80 people are in custody, several at large, while others have been put out of action.
We are more interested in these suspects, these arrested people, more than anyone else, because we want information. And that is why we have 81. Only 7 have died, and they died because they were running away, they were fighting back.
These horrific terror attacks have resurfaced 11 years after the Al-Shabaab militants bombed Chadondo rugby grounds and the Ethiopian restaurant in Kabalagala in 2010, killing over 70 people.
Welcome back from that short clip. To discuss all this, I have in the studio Council Sarah Birete, Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. We have Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi, Member of Parliament, Gulu City. We have Andrew Mujuni Mwenda. He is a senior journalist and is CEO of the Independent News Magazine. Online through Zoom, we have the Honorable Jackson Makshon Oboth, the Minister of State for Veteran Affairs in the Ministry of Defense. Gentlemen and lady, you're most welcome to this show. And let me confirm that Oboth is online. Honorable, are you there? Is joining us all the way from Tororo, so may I request my production team to cross-check as the discussion here starts. Let me start with a very quick pick from each of you, your thoughts on this terror attack. Andrew, do you think we are safe in Uganda right now as we talk?
Well, first of all, I don't think we can ever be safe. I imagine that car accidents kill more people than these terrorists. And therefore, the terrorists, how many people have they killed in the last 6 months, and how many people have died in car accidents? Let me tell you, the theory of a terrorist. Terrorism is, you see, 2 acts of violence. One can be of a revolutionary nature, another one of a terrorist nature. A terrorist aim is always indirect. It is actually psychological. And clearly you demonstrate to me how right they are. The aim of a terrorist is not to overthrow a government directly. It is not to defeat an army directly. It's a weapon of the weak. They use terror in order to do 2 things. One, spread fear. That is a psychological effect. People get afraid. And once people get afraid, that induces governments to take repressive actions that prove what the terrorist is saying. Already the terrorist is saying the government is repressive, blah, 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 blah. Then he commits an act of violence. Remember, the people the terrorist kills, they are not his target. The target of a terrorist is not those people who died on the street. Those are what you would call innocent bystanders. The aim of the terrorist may even be sympathetic to the person who dies. He has a little interest. Let me not say that. Let me say terrorist has no interest at all in the life or death of the victim. He has an interest in dramatizing his or her cause to the public in order to attract public attention to his cause, but also to spread fear. So if you say Uganda is not safe right now because of these bombs, you are demonstrating the effectiveness of terror attacks. The aim is to spread fear, and fear, the spreading of fear is not an end in itself. The spreading of fear is to induce a series of actions by the government. It is in the actions that the governments take that actually the terrorist hopes to harvest his fortune.
Okay. Thanks for that thought. Honorable Mapenduzi, do you think we are safe?
Well, I would say we are not safe. When one life is lost, it affects all of us. And I don't think we should allow an environment where innocent people get killed. We're also not safe because we do not know the kind of people we are dealing with. We do not know their intentions. Of course, just as Andrew put it, they want to cause fear. They want to send us into panic. So, but it's difficult to understand their overall intention, their plan, and so people are living in fear. But also from the other angle, it's partly their mission to create fear. And so I think what is happening is unfortunate, but there is a way we as a country, we can make their intentions, their objectives fail. First, I think as a country, there are things we need to do as a people, but also at institutional level, as government, the security agencies, there are things they have to do. At the end of the day, the terrorists have to be defeated. And just like Andrew put it, these are partly, we need to know whether these are mere extremists or people who have gone through extremism and they are being used by terrorists, riding on the extremist kind of mentality to brutalize the population and cause fear. But at the end of the day, they are not after overthrowing a government. They just want to inflict pain. They want to send a message that they're there. They want to scare people, create confusion, and I would say partly yesterday I would say they achieved their objectives. One, Parliament was suspended. We couldn't go ahead. Two, lives were lost. Three, and you could see the tension. So that is what the terrorists. Yeah.
Odongotho is terribly scared.
Yeah, well, that's the other one I did not know.
He's not opened this discussion by saying he feels very unsafe.
So that's exactly what the terrorists are trying to look at, to create that kind of confusion. And as a country, we have to choose between, following what they want us to follow, or we have to, as a country, reorganize ourselves and say, look, we are not going to allow this to continue, and everyone has to get involved in the struggle.
We will be discussing the details of that, the involvement of the ordinary civilian population. Sarah, what's your view in terms of our safety, generally speaking? Where do you place us now?
Well, I think Uganda is largely safe, and we need to be mindful that the intention of terrorism is societal control from below. So when we exhibit fear, when everybody stays home, Parliament is closed for 2 days, shops are closed for 2 days, people are scared of going to markets, and indeed some people are indeed scared. The terrorist has achieved their means of controlling society through fear and intimidation. If you look at the capacities of our security agencies to fight terrorism, I think we have, registered successes at different fronts. But the question that remains unanswered is who is responsible. I know that the police was quick to announce it's ADF even at the scene of the crime without any investigation. Then you have claims of Islamic State, and then they are Central African affiliate. So I think what is confusing in the minds of an ordinary citizen is ADF still there? Was it defeated? Which is which? You have Islamic State claiming responsibility, you have our leaders saying it's ADF, so who is who? Okay. So I think there is that confusion, and we need to investigate to know, are we dealing with the local terrorism? Are we dealing with the regional terrorism that involves the Al-Shabaab axis? Are we dealing with international terrorism that now would bring in fears of Taliban taking control of Afghanistan? What kind of terrorism are we faced with? Are we able to establish this? Are we able to then counter the measures of these terrorists effectively.
Honorable Mapenduzi, one of the blasts or two of them that went off on Parliament Avenue were right in front of the offices of the building that houses MPs. I don't know whether you sit there yourself. Did you, for a minute, think that maybe these people could have targeted Parliament and maybe their target was missed?
Well, there are quite a number of thoughts that come into mind. But looking at the blasted, Parliament Avenue, right next to where a number of members of Parliament sit. I don't sit there, but when this blaster took place, I was in my office. At first, I thought the other building under construction was collapsing, because the sound was loud. It shook the main building. You could feel it. And then a few seconds later, I was inside and heard a lot of, movement and noise out, and so I walked out and saw people running in different directions, and others were being told to get out, and that's when I started getting to know what had actually happened. And then the police were very quick in trying to direct people on what should be done and come down and do this. And so what comes to my mind is that looking at the how near I think the intention could have been, targeting Parliament. But thank God the security at the main gate, not only the main gate, generally the security at Parliament is quite good. And so my assumption is that they probably found it difficult to go through the main gate, and so decided to just have it immediate after the main gate as you go to, to those other buildings where members of Parliament sit. And the other thing that probably these terrorists had in mind was to send a message that actually we are right near, the heart of, security, because the security, and Parliament, there is the office of the President, the office of the Prime Minister. So having this, bomb blast right there, it's a message that the terrorists want to send. And I think this message has to be taken seriously. Seriously, because the moment you have bomb blast at police station, what message does it send? If a police station is attacked by terrorists, then what about the common man and woman out there? That the fear, therefore, is justified. And so members of Parliament, majority of the members of Parliament believe that Parliament was the target. Probably they only failed to access Parliament, and so what they could do was to have the explosion right not far away from Parliament.
Okay. Is the Honourable both now on? Honourable Oboth, good evening. Honourable Minister, good evening. We're having network issues. Andrew, there have been debates, especially on online, social media and stuff. People asking the question, even during the Komamboga blast after Ntinda, that the British intelligence had earlier warned or shared some intelligence of intentions of the terrorists to attack. Of course, we can't know where. Do you think that we underestimated, took for granted those? How do we deal as a country, and even as partners in security, in intelligence, how do we deal with those warnings? Did we take them for granted? Who do we have to blame for not taking them, you know, in sync?
I do not think that the British government or the British intelligence had the capacity to say that at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Haruna Nakumat would be walking along Parliamentary Avenue and blow himself up. I would not imagine so. You can get intelligence about a likely threat, which I would imagine the British government would have shared with the Ugandan government, likely threat, and you can put in place measures to contain that threat. You see, the thing with the terrorism is that we know when the terrorist has succeeded. We never get to know when he has failed, right? How many terrorist attempts has the police foiled in the last 3, 4, 5 months?
There are many. So there are many. Honorable Mwezi says they have like 81 people arrested.
Many times, the head of crime intelligence, whom you guys should interview, Major General Damle Raserunjoji, will tell you they have been breaking down these cells and arresting and apprehending people. So if they are able to reach those places and apprehend those people, even confiscate their bomb-making materials, and they succeed in 27 of the cases and fail in 2, then you have yesterday. You see, the thing with the terrorist is the terrorist needs to succeed only once.
Because
if you are government, you have to succeed 100%. Even if you stopped him 1,000,000 times, the day he succeeds, he will create a lot of drama. And the people will think that you have failed. So whatever the British intelligence could have shared with Ugandan intelligence needs to be understood in that context. That
I think you talked about measures, and I think that that's where the concern becomes. What are these measures that should have been put in place? Should public places have been, you know, mobilized, sensitized? People are careless. People are moving anyhow. People are too free.
I do not think that you can put in place measures to stop that kind of terrorist act. Remember, just watch the videos. One guy carrying a bag was riding on a motorbike. They did not even reach any place. In the middle of the road, the bomb went off. And another one was walking in front of CPS, and the bomb detonated. You see, what measures would you have that people should not walk on the road, or people should not carry bags? Because you have a bag, you see Sarah Viret, she has her bag there. She's going to move with it. So the thing we need to understand is terrorism as a method of political struggle presents government with serious dilemmas. And those serious dilemmas are that it threatens normal ways of life, induces fear, and it may force government to take actions which may actually be counterproductive. But the point I wanted to stress is that if you understand this government of Yoweri Museveni, I think that the terrorists don't have much of a chance. They can have a short-term run, but with time, the government will gain grip, because it will be able to infiltrate the different cells where they operate and begin breaking them down piece by piece, and in a few months, the situation will go back to normal. They will actually be neutralized. The second thing that will neutralize the terrorists is, you see, even as a method of struggle, they must win public sympathy. I don't think the actions, as they are, can win them supporters. I am sure even those who hate Museveni the most are disinclined to come and say, we identify with them. The third factor, I saw somebody speak on behalf of ISIS, claiming this. You see, Uganda has only 12% of Muslims. Of those 12%, and I don't think there is such widespread grievance among Muslims to catalyze even that 12% to support terrorism. For me, my advice to the government of Uganda is, please don't panic. Don't allow the terrorists to lure you into taking a series of actions that may give his actions legitimacy. Like if you begin targeting Muslims, if you begin if government, how, you see, it is not what the terrorist does that shapes what his agenda is. It is the response of the government, the authorities, to his actions that shapes his fortunes. So if the government responds in a reckless manner and targets Muslims innocently or does things like that, it may create the actual foundation it may create the actual conditions that the terrorist wants for his struggle.
Sarah, what do you say to that? Because those measures are what people should be more concerned about. What if there were intelligence, information that were sent, shared? The question, the rational question then becomes: did we take action on them? True, you cannot put in place measures that can curb it totally, and but in some places people are told, and publicly, that be careful. We have experienced some threats, and you have to take caution personally.
The terrorism has now been with us for, I think, since the 9/11 attacks. So there have been a lot of write-ups, a lot of counter-terrorism measures developed, a lot of trusted and tested methods of countering terrorism effectively. And 3 key methods of countering terrorism is through regional and international cooperation, especially information sharing on plans of terrorists, breaking the financial chains of terrorists, and breaking their training and recruitment grounds. So the UK did share the information of possible terror attacks on their website in October. The police publicly dismissed the message. And one can argue that after all, even UK has been hit, because we know that there was the Liverpool Women's Hospitals program, where the UK has now raised their terror threats severe, and they are on high alert. But what opportunities did we miss with that message? Maybe security could have done their work behind the scenes, but the question that then arises is, why didn't they prepare the people? Previously, we have defeated terrorists through clear messaging and sensitization and preparation of the people. Security agencies cannot fight terrorism in silence. How did we prepare the people? Why didn't we share these messages to make sure we are on high alert as a country? Why didn't we get the details of possible targets and make sure they are on very high alert? I think this is the opportunity we missed as a country. After Komamboga, 2 weeks, no more, even if it is a security problem or crisis, or even a high scandal in government, in Uganda we concentrate on an issue for 2 to 3 weeks, we forget it. Even after Komamboga, we are on high alert. I go to most of these places. You enter a place and you're like, I've not even been checked. And you start quarreling on why you were not checked. So I think we missed this opportunity of public mobilization.
So, Sarah, I want to ask you, so assuming they reinforced all public areas and ensure there is checking, how would this have stopped this attack?
No, of course, when it comes to the nature of attack, it's a different issue. But Andrew, me and you have been adults in Kampala during previous terror alerts. And we know the high alert stages we have been through as a country. We are not even at that level. We have been at the height of Al-Shabaab attacks in this town. What is stopping us is my question. Of course, there are attacks you cannot stop. Even highly developed countries are hit. Terrorism is terrorism. But how prepared are we? And how are we preparing the citizens is my question.
Honorable Mapenduzi.
But just one thing to answer, I am hoping that the government of Uganda does not enter a siege mentality and creates a situation where everybody is inconvenienced, people can't go to places, because in any case, the most crowded places like markets, you leave public buildings like markets, tax parks, even traffic jams, government has little control. Because when we are driving in cars, yesterday, because of there was a lot of traffic jam on Ginger Road roundabout.
Yeah.
And they said if this terrorist had come and they detonated it in the middle of the traffic, it would have been a disaster. So I don't think that it is possible to have full proof. It is good what Benet is saying, that at many public places, which are important, hotels, and we can put stricter methods of surveillance and of control so that a person does not penetrate. But ultimately, if you are fighting terrorists, it would be very difficult because the terrorists' aim is to disrupt your normal way of life. And the terrorist success will be if a government enters a siege mentality and then creates an unnecessary shutdown of the country or the city simply because of their threats. I think that the best strategy towards fighting terrorism is not to become a captive of the kind of psychological fear they seek to spread.
But to go ahead with our lives, normal lives, but is that possible? I was at ICT Ministry when the blasts went off just across the road, and I can tell you, immediately we were evacuated, the first people who said, just get out of this place and go home, don't come back, don't even pick your cars, were security people. So is it even possible that once these attacks have happened, that we can still remain normal? I think it's hard to.
Of course we cannot. But what I'm saying is that we should not overreact. We should not enter a siege mentality. I don't want to see roadblocks on every arm and leg of Kampala. You know, one time I went to Brussels, I think in 2018 there was a security scare. Brussels is one of the most beautiful and quiet cities in Europe. I think 2018 or 2019. My friend had deployed Mambas and the Buffels and all these armored personnel carriers, heavily armored policemen. I mean, the city looked under siege because they had heard there was a terrorist threat. And first of all, I think I got the sense that sometimes governments take action not because they think it is effective, but simply because they want to reassure the public that something is being done. So if I was government, I may also make some serious military maneuvers, make soldiers march across the street and people think something is being done, even if what they are doing really may not stop me sitting in my house in Kulambiro, making a homemade bomb, putting it in my bag, and walking from Kulambiro and returning it to Kampala.
You know, Andrew is for two reasons. One is public confidence, but two is also to preempt the actions of the enemy. If the enemy thinks you are too prepared for them, maybe they will retract.
Like we said, it is all psychological. Mapinduzi, speak to the viewer about what you think in terms of the public involvement. Sarah says we missed the opportunity. Andrew says the measures needed to be there, but it's hard to really curb every intention that a wrong person has. What do you think? You deal with the public, you deal with people, you are an MP. Are these possibilities that can be, that we missed indeed, did we?
You know, Charles, I saw the confusion, the panic, and the kind of, yesterday, and but I also saw how the security agencies responded. Much as one of the explosion took place at near CPS, and then I saw a statement that was made by a police officer. I think there was a leader who was putting that police officer and a lot of.
What can the police do?
He was demanding that the fire, there was a vehicle burning, and he was demanding that it should be put off, and the police officer said, what can the police do? And some people have started, writing, and it's yesterday and today many people keep on saying, what can the police do? Even a T-shirt design. I think Ugandans need to be a lot.
That level of cynicism.
Yes, Ugandans need to be a lot more serious. This is not something to joke with, because that police officer is a human being. Actually, police officers were attacked. Yes. Others died and others are critically injured. Yeah. And you have someone who feels is part of that. So everyone was confused. And so I don't blame that police officer for giving such a statement, because when people are desperate, they make mistakes. And so it should not be taken like, but I appreciate that something was done and the level of responses, and it was quick. And to me, just from the fact that several arrests, and this is not the first time. So the police is trying their best, the security agencies. But just as Andrew put it, there is a lot more that should be done. Now, coming to the question you ask, where it becomes a lot more tricky is when somebody carries a bag and from nowhere there is an explosion. Now, that is very challenging. And Ugandans need to know that this is something extremely complicated that we have to deal with. So it calls for everyone's participation. Like the president issued a statement and mentioned names of people who are said to have, those who
suspects.
Yeah, the suspects, right? People suspected to have been the ones who carried out the attacks. Those names have been mentioned. Now, there is a starting point. These names these are probably Ugandans. I do not know that much. But if they are Ugandans, then they are known. And if they are known, then they have relatives and families. And so so every citizen has to get involved. And by the way, it also has a lot to do with childhood development. When you go to many of these countries where there are serious issues of terrorism and suicide bombing, it's about how a child grows and gets brainwashed, and you can easily notice as a parent, if you are responsible, when your child begins to behave funnily, you can easily notice.
Yeah.
Because this comes with a lot of behavioral changes that can be identified and all that. So it goes back to the public, because even if we decide that the police and the army should be everywhere, we cannot have them everywhere.
No, you can't.
So what are the citizens going to do? What are we going to do? Playing our role at family level, at community level, but also as a country, believing that we can actually not be defeated by these terrorists. All right? Because their message is, we are there. We want to cause this. And part of what they would want to do is to cripple activities.
Yeah.
All right? So
let me. I'm told the Honorable, or both is now available online. Honorable, good evening.
Good evening, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
Honorable, it is good to see you. I pray that you did not hide in Tororo. There are things happening in Kampala, and you are in charge of defense, so you should be in Kampala, where the epicenter of the happening. But I started by asking your colleagues here on the panel whether the country is safe, and they gave the answers they gave. I needed to get your own assessment of what is now going on. We had reached at a point when we were discussing, the possibility that intelligence about some of the threats were shared, and we wanted to find out, how do you treat some of these intelligence alerts? Do you use them to then alert people, the public, or you majorly keep them back as you work in the security sector?
Thank you, Charles. First of all, I'm not hiding in Tororo. I've been working in the East. I started my work on related security issues on the porous borders and security concerns. And also I was in Karamoja on the cattle corridor, on those cattle rustling. So this found me in Tororo, concluded today. And it's not that I'm hiding. You know for sure I can't hide in Tororo. But as colleagues in the studio have stated already, I think there's unison of mind in this aspect of terrorism and the fight against terrorism. Whether intelligence is shared, some of these things, Charles, the intelligence, the threat alerts were shared with everyone, not only with the government of Uganda, and the UK shared that with everyone. It was on the website, not that Uganda ignored. I believe that, as many of you know, that this country, the government of Uganda is committed to making sure that our borders are safe and Uganda is safe. So the commitment of government and the security agencies, like most of you have observed, is really that we need to appreciate. We believe we need to do more, but terrorism, you know, keeps on changing. It's a philosophy of evil.
Honorable, you rightly say that the face of terrorism keeps changing.
So it keeps changing. Hello?
Honorable, you rightly said that the face of and the character of terrorism keeps changing. I wanted to also ask you on what your thoughts are about what looks like the changing trends or the changing style of attack. These guys used to set places, they used to set up bombs. You see in countries like Kenya, when they attacked, was that Garissa University, when they attacked, and then the supermarket later, the shopping mall, they would come and start firing at people, and then they try to escape. But now, yesterday, we are now faced with a real situation of, you know, first of all, they are very daring. They decided to target military personnel or armed personnel, you know, police. But two, that they were ready to die with their targets. Is that something that is of concern? Is that something that you have noticed in the security in the security arena? And how do we deal with it?
Yes, that is like Mr. Andrew Mwenda said. That is one of the suicide bombers. They don't plant bombs. They die with others. That's what they call the suicide bombers. That's just one of the ways of passing their message and causing fear. So basically, and in Uganda, we've witnessed both. Planting of bombs, you know, the rugby, you know, the World Cup match, and a few others, even the Kumamboga was different, but also you saw a similar one in the bus, in the gateway bus, that other bus that somebody blew up himself. So those are all messages within, and I think breaking down these details within here wouldn't be very, very appropriate. But all I want to tell Ugandans that is government is committed, the security agencies are alert, and this country will continue to be secure. And so that people can go on carrying on their duties as they're supposed to do. You know, as rightly observed, this is to inflict fear. And fear is based on negativity. So, and I think I want to thank Honorable Mapenduzi and the rest, including Sarah, Madam Sarah Birete and Andrew. We are agreeing on one thing. This is not good for us. And I'm so happy that in the studio, there is a meeting of mind. When we know we stand as Ugandans to fight this terrorism, we shall defeat it. When we have shared values, we have shared goals, we have shared interests, we shall defeat it. Whatever form it comes, we shall defeat it. Yes.
Okay, Honorable, let me bring in your colleagues who are in the studio here back into the discussion. Andrew, you earlier touched on the role of the citizen. Let's explore that a little more. Do we have a citizenry which is which can actually fight this kind of terrorism? Do we have that capacity as citizens, not first, leave alone the state and government agencies? Do you think that in our makeup we can actually fight terrorism the way it is presenting?
It depends upon what you mean, how citizens can fight terrorism. But even yesterday alone, there was a story of people who had a scuffle in a house in Nansana.
Yeah.
After they quarreled, one shot another and escaped from the house with a gun. The neighbors called the police. The police chased the person and killed him. Surely, that already shows you that Ugandans are vigilant and they would fight terrorism. But the most important thing about the role of the citizen here is that I don't find it in the Ugandan character for people to commit acts of this suicide bombing. And if they did, the next thing is that this depends, and this is what is very important for government, how government reacts. I don't think that they can have the effect they want. You see, ultimately, the terrorist must cause psychological fear in the population, must undermine the credibility of the government to perform its most basic function, which is ensuring safety of person and property. Now, the terrorist seeks to undermine that at a psychological level, to create fear and make people believe that somehow government cannot protect them. As I said earlier, it is how the government will respond to that that will determine whether the terrorist will have his or her political cause will have a chance or not. And my own view, therefore, is that the Museveni government, the way it has previously reacted to these kinds of things, we had a lot of these terrorist attacks in the 1998-99, then in 2007, then 2010. They have always reacted in a manner as not to victimize any single group. I am sure they will seek to use the infrastructure they have to penetrate the different organizational cells of the terrorists, isolate the terrorists, and apprehend them and jail them and prosecute them. In that sense, therefore, if they keep that kind of attitude, the terrorists' greatest advantage is to find public support, and I don't think he will be able to win public support in Uganda. That people feel that the grievances of the terrorists are so legitimate as to justify this kind of indiscriminate slaughter.
Okay.
And there is the role of the citizen, because the citizen's greatest contribution would be if they felt that the cause and methods of the terrorist are legitimate and therefore lend support to the terrorist. Then you will not see the kind of actions we saw in Nansana, where people were voluntarily reported this case.
But maybe even coming to my mind is that Nansana can be, you know, balanced. Nansana is one which can be balanced by the fact that a border man accepted to carry someone. For now, we don't know whether the border was picked off the road, the normal border that operates on the streets of Kampala. But I was asking this question, you know, coming from a backdrop of the thinking that, you know, there is this comparison we have with Liverpool, where a taxi driver is hired by a terrorist, and then along the way he realizes that this terrorist is actually has planned to go and bomb the women's hospital. And he decides to daringly take a decision and locks the guy inside, and the guy is blasted with his bomb in the car. Now, do you think that, and I'm just trying to pick your mind really, given the poverty, given the needs of our people, do we have situations where our people can really do such a thing, go that mile and say, I would rather die for my, you know?
First of all, here is a convergence of a very unique case, a convergence of two factors. That the terrorist hired a car, and in a mathematical probability of 1 in 1,000, he picked the wrong taxi driver who is vigilant and tough. So is there such a probability in Uganda? Yes. I don't think that every taxi driver in the UK would have responded that way anyway. So it could have been an unlucky day for the terrorist that the driver he picked is of such a level of vigilance. But I also know so many Ugandans, I'm sure, caught in a situation like that. Of course they would do this a similar thing. I will not place it beyond a Ugandan taxi driver to, not every Ugandan taxi driver, but out of say every 1,000, maybe 1 or 10, which is 0.1% or 1%, could be able to do something like that.
Sarah, what do you think?
You know, previously we have had witnesses, especially in high crime cases, victimized by our criminal justice system. The people, let me use the example of the late IGP Kawesi. The first witnesses, most of them were arrested and even detained for 2 years.
Witnesses?
Yes, for giving the first-hand account of what they saw. So it would be, you know, in a developed criminal justice systems, such a taxi driver is protected. In our scenario, my worry would be, what are the chances of such a person who is an active citizen playing his role as a vigilant prevent of lives and property? What are the chances that he would be mistaken for your collaborator? You know, it is what is, and we have seen this before. Innocent people, first-hand account, arrested, detained in an unconstitutional manner, not allowed access of relatives, you know, in that brutal manner that has happened, especially to people who were detained over Kawesi murder and later released after so many years of detention without trial. So we have such unfortunate incidences in our criminal justice systems. But that would be what is expected of every citizen. Given what happens that I've described, many people would even be scared of saying, I have seen this. It's because what are the chances that you'll be arrested? The recent study by Afrobarometer, which is an international investigative and research group in Africa, on governance and trust in governments, 7 out of 10 people said they withhold information from government institutions for fear of victimization. And I think these are the challenges we need to deal with. You cannot fight. You know, what are the conditions for fighting terrorism effectively? We celebrated the life of the late Deputy IGP, may he rest in peace, for his achievements in Somalia. And one of the highlighted achievements was fostering civil-military relations in Somalia and effective cooperation with the people. You cannot have security in a country where security is unable to get timely information from the citizens. It is our biggest weakness today because of largely the conduct of security forces in this country, which is very unfortunate. They have lost trust with the people. The people cannot give first-hand information for fear of victimization. Somebody will see something and say, oh, why? Let me run home. I don't want to be caught in this. So these are the issues we must address as a country.
Honorable Mapenduzi, is that question of trust, how do you think about it? That we, and when you read social media, you really see the level of cynicism of our people. You see, there are some people even, you know, shockingly started saying, ruling it out. This is not a terrorist attack, something else. Even blaming government. And that is the extent to which the level of cynicism has reached. That is the extent of the mistrust. What's your take about it?
First, I think government needs to do a lot to reflect deeply and get to understand why the citizens have such kind of perception. It's not coming from, you know, it has a root. And that is a duty that government needs to take boldly. unless it's a government that is not really serious about the affairs of the citizens. When citizens begin to express openly their doubtfulness, their negative perception on government institutions, and it's a strong message that there are gaps, and it's the duty of government to identify these gaps while working closely with the citizens to understand. I think there should be a lot more engagement to get to know why this. Secondly, it also goes beyond, there is a feeling of, there is poverty, sometimes services are poor and expectations are high, and the citizens sometimes feel nothing much is being done. Now, all these different factors can easily contribute to an environment where perception is built. And so there is need to look into that. But also the other thing, just coming to the question you had asked to Madam Sarah, if you watch the clip that is being played in relation to what happened yesterday, the border cyclist, first it's difficult to tell whether the border was used unknowingly to carry probably a suicide bomber. It's possible that you end up becoming a victim when you are actually not in the know of what is going on. There are also people who have expressed this view that probably the suicide bomber who went to CPS probably did not know what he was carrying. Now this takes me back to our level of vigilance as a country. And Ugandans, Ugandans are known for being very, very, hospitable. We are very generous people, but that can easily be abused. So I think it's time for us to be a lot more vigilant. And I have interacted with many border cyclists. When you stop, some of them just stop and they do not care who you are, carry you, and they want to get their money. I think we should go far beyond that and begin to first care about our safety and our security before we even talk about money. Otherwise, we are not going to solve a problem. I'll give you an example in Gulu. One time I had a meeting with the local council chairpersons, LC1, and I said, do you know the people living in your area? Because in Gulu we are experiencing a problem with these street children who have grown and they have become a problem to the community, attacking people and doing that. And so my question to the LCs was, how much information do you have in as far as your area is concerned? There are places where you do not know anybody completely. So anybody can come, stay around, plan, and it takes us back to what is being talked about, because the police have repeatedly said that these are homemade bombs. So we do not know how many people have been trained on how to make these explosives. We are also told the materials can easily be accessible from within, locally. So it's a challenging task, a challenging responsibility. And so we need to get back to how at individual level take responsibility to begin to think about our own safety, but also the safety of our neighbors and people who stay around us, but also begin to be a lot more vigilant on activities. What kind of activities take place within your area? Do you have people whose behavior are suspicious? Do you have so there are a lot that we have to look at. But finally, the other thing that is important is for government to accept that there are challenges, and these challenges, if are not taken seriously, it's going to turn even a lot more disastrous. The population is growing so fast. It's projected that probably by 2050, Uganda will be close to 100 million people. And then there is also poverty. Unemployment is skyrocketing. All right? So the moment this kind of terrorists begin to penetrate our society and taking advantage of the difficult environment, then many young people can easily be tempted to get into that. And that is going to be uncontrollable. So we have to begin looking at that deeply right now. And the other thing that needs to be taken serious is getting to understand, because just as Andrew put it, in Uganda it's difficult to imagine somebody carrying a bomb and just, but then it's happening.
But how many people have committed suicide over COVID lockdowns?
That's right.
Border cyclists, people setting themselves ablaze. So if people have been driven to such levels of desperation, why can't they?
So my point is
they
that...
have nothing to lose.
Yeah, my point is that when you begin to see this kind of thing in Uganda, then it sends a very worrying message that if our young people reach that extent of accepting to kill themselves, accepting to go to a crowded place and, have this bomb blast, I think that should be the biggest, and we need to invest heavily to get to understand how that is coming up, what kind of, indoctrination is going on, and government has the capacity to do that.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call for a break right now. We take a break, a short one, and when we come back, we will be looking at the socio-economic factors and how that can be taken advantage of. Let's take that break now. We will be back. This is Behind the Headlines.
Grow together with one of Uganda's largest companies. Apply for MTN shares for as low as 100,000 Uganda shillings. And when you apply using MTN Mobile Money, you get 10 free extra shares for every 100 shares you apply for. Dial *165*65# or use the MyMTN app to apply now. The terms and conditions of the offer and other important information are set out in the prospectus. For assistance, visit any MTN service center or Stanbic Bank branch countrywide or a licensed broker.
It's the festive season and we love it. And that means it's time to celebrate with GoTV.
Come with me.
So get your GoCoder and GoTV value for 25,000 shillings to watch with the whole family. And if you're feeling extra festive, upgrade to our best package yet, GoTV Super.
Something to look forward to.
Download the My GoTV app for more information.
Super.
We all deserve a super festive season. And with GoTV, there's every reason to love it.
Introducing Learn From Home Data Bundles. Customized bundles for you and your family to study or work seamlessly from the comfort of your home. Use any of these affordable data bundles to connect to your MiFi, routers, laptops, tablets, and smartphones while avoiding unwanted internet exposure and ensuring undivided attention during online classes. Enjoy instant access to Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and selected educational websites. Dial *175# to buy your Learn From Home bundle today. Airtel, the smartphone network. Terms and conditions apply.
Introducing the all-new Roofing's TMX 500C rebars with cut and bend surfaces. Roofing's, strength of a nation.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field couldn't be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Deposit money onto your Airtel Money account. Reactivate your Airtel Money account with a deposit of a minimum of 1,000 shillings and get 10 minutes free Airtel to Airtel calls valid for 24 hours. Offer is applicable for a one-time transaction. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines on UBC Television. And I have 4 guests, 3 in the studio here. I have Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi. We have Council Birete Sara. We have Andrew Mujuni Mwenda. We have on the line joining us by Zoom is the Honorable Oboth Jackson, and is joining us all the way from Tororo. Before we went for the break, we were looking at...
before we went for the break,
yeah,
Sarah was wearing her mask. Now that they have given her coffee, she has removed it. So
you are enjoying coffee.
COVID. They're removing the mask.
But Ladit Andrew, you have been without a mask. And
only those who
I wanted to ask a similar question.
Only those who have not sinned can see my mask. So you have revealed to the public that you are sinning and not repenting your sins.
Well, I accept defeat.
Can I therefore testify that the coffee you are taking is from Cafe Pap?
That's right.
And I think what you are doing is you are all enjoying the coffee. Whether there is sugar or honey in it or herbs, because I know that the herbs have become very popular with COVID.
I think Andrew was eyeing my coffee, and he never wanted me to touch it.
You know, Charles, during the lockdown, some people raided my lemon, plantation, and they were picking, including when they finished everything, they came for the leaves. And I said, now what is this?
Honorable Oboth, are you online? Are you picking me? Honorable Oboth, you're
Yes.
missing the fun in the studio here.
I'm missing coffee too.
Now, for you are going to serve yourself at home.
No, we can send you some coffee via WhatsApp.
Andrew, stop being naughty.
It's good to laugh at such times. But Honorable Oboth, tell us about tell us something about the role of the population, the role of the Mwananchi. In your work, from your perspective as a person who is, you are leading the defense sector and security, and when you get such challenges like we have now, what would you expect of the population, of the Mwananchi? What do you expect of ordinary person out there who is on the street, who is in the church, who is, doing their normal work in a gathering somewhere? Your voters, what would you expect of them?
Thank you very much. This is not a battle that can be won by the security forces only. This needs the population, the community. Now we need to be vigilant. Ugandans need to be vigilant. We shouldn't be panic. We shouldn't be panicky, but we should be vigilant. And one of the things that we can be able to do, know who is your neighbor. We have a local council one chairpersons without register of residents and visitors in that area. You will have landlords who are not interested in knowing who is their tenant. Somebody lives in your house. We have hotel owners who probably only need the money. It is the time for us to come back and make it a policy, make it as a priority that anybody who comes to an area must be registered. Anybody who is in a hotel, this would do it, but some people don't do it very well. And I think one of the ways of getting this domestic threats or threats to our security and stability, we need to awaken ourselves to do what we are supposed to do. I do not agree with the school of thought that there can be anything that can push you, not like push you to die. That would push you to be your good neighbor, be the best neighbor to your neighbor, and be involved, be suspicious of people who are, whom you're dealing with. Not out of fear, but out of reasonable belief that we want to find solutions. In the beginning, we talked about the laissez-faire of the places of public places. That should stop. It should be our lifestyle to be cautious of our surroundings. And I believe if LC1s would have a register for those who are residents and visitors, like now I've been in the East, and you find there are hawkers, foreign hawkers, people who are comfortably doing hawking, selling funny things. We should interest ourselves to ask some questions. Who are these people? Where are they coming from? Where do they sleep? You find they're hawking but sleeping in good hotels. So we should be interesting ourselves in some of those things if we want all collectively to make Uganda very secure. And I believe with the efforts of the members of public, the Wananchi, this is very possible when we work together with the security agencies. So rightly to say, every individual, every Ugandan has a role to play in the fight against terrorism.
Honorable both, there are some people who have argued that the discussion over the Bijambia, are they called Bijambia? In greater areas of Masaka, could have started what we are now seeing, except that the attitude of receiving that Bijambia thing was wanting. It was thought as something for only Masaka, greater Masaka area, something for the people there to deal with, and it has only now matured or was planned to mature anyway. Do you think that the Bijambia attacks in Masaka area and these attacks like yesterday's do they have a connection?
I wouldn't want to think so. And
pure coincidence?
This is not one area that I think we can speculate a lot. Terrorism has been here before the Bijambias in Masaka or Greater Uganda sub-region. Terrorism has been there, you know, in Uganda and other places. So I wouldn't spoil my mind connecting the two.
Okay. Let me bring in the colleagues who are here. Sarah, do you think that the Bijambia attacks that we actually discussed here had any semblance with what we are seeing now in town? Was that a precursor?
Yeah, I think the country has not been briefed about what happened in Masaka. Apart from the arrest of the 2 MPs, I don't know what information is in public domain as to what was the cause of those killings, who was behind them, and what was the motive. And without that information, especially since nobody claimed responsibility, but with the terror attacks, the twin bombings, the Islamic State has claimed responsibility. The police has linked them to ADF. I don't know what ADF they mean, whether it's the affiliate of Islamic State or according to them, I don't know whether the old ADF of Jamil Mukur still exists. But that was not the case with the massacre killings. What is common, however, is the senseless killing of Ugandans, careless and the unjustified taking of people's lives, which must stop. I think that's the common factor in these two incidences.
And Andrew, do you think that they had any link?
First of all, I don't think they had a link. But I should tell you that, you see, terrorism is a strategy of political struggle. Like guerrilla warfare, like conventional warfare, like different revolutionary warfare. And the acts can be the same, the intention can be different. Let me give you an example. Assuming we have a rail line coming from Kampala going to Fort Portal. And if I have my guerrilla army in Fort Portal, and the government uses the railway line to resupply.
Which you actually had the other day.
Until we took over the government.
Is he a rebel leader?
He had a group.
So the government uses the railway to transport troops there. You get it? And I send my guys, they break down the railway. The aim of my guerrilla army is to remove the rails and break down the railway in order to stop the reinforcement of troops in Fort Portal to fight me. I could therefore be involved in guerrilla warfare or revolutionary warfare. A terrorist may do the same thing, but the aim of uprooting the train is not to stop the movement of troops. It could be possible to cause the derailment of the train when it is coming, the rails are off, people die, and it dramatizes his actions. Do you see? It is the same act, but the motives of each of the players are different. And therefore, even the sought goal is different. Because remember that a terrorist may begin a struggle and induce the government to take a series of actions which alienate the population, so the population begins to identify with the terrorist cause, and then the terrorist can transform from a terrorist to
freedom fighter,
to what you'd call a revolutionist. And this is where I think ADF has a problem. The terrorism that Uganda is facing has a fundamental weakness. The fundamental weakness, one, is that at a level of ideology, it is based on a very narrow interpretation of Islam, and therefore I don't think it can appeal to the vast majority of Muslims in Uganda through its actions. So it will lack the ability to appeal to ideological comradeship, because it is very narrow on its basis, and will not even achieve public sympathy. Precisely because I predict that the government of Uganda will act in such a reasonable manner as to isolate the terrorists from the wider population. So really, they have a very limited chance. Of course, they have an even bigger problem now because I saw ISIS claiming this hit. I don't know how many supporters ISIS would find in Uganda. It is possible that it will find 1,500 or 2,500 diehard Muslims willing to take up its cause, but that is too small a number to gain to give them the necessary political momentum. What I was looking at and what I keep repeating here is that a small group of 1,500 people, or even 500 determined ones, can create such a powerful scare and psychological fear and induce an unsuspecting or non-intelligent government to act in ways that actually tend to create the right political environment for this terrorist group to grow into a political organization. Because remember that terrorists, by the very nature of organization, is a very small group with very limited political organization. It does not enjoy a mass political base. So if you look at the NRA, for example, when it was in Luweero, they could lay landmines. Those landmines sometimes could hit military trucks, but sometimes they hit ambulances. The government of Obote used to call them bandits because in many cases, the landmines tended to kill innocent people. Sometimes Obote would use bandits, sometimes you would use terrorists. But you can clearly see the aim was to disrupt the ability of government to make war against NRA. In this case, I don't see how they can appeal to the wider Ugandan public when they are agents of ISIS. ISIS, who in Uganda is going to fight for the establishment of ISIS?
Attackers ably identified.
You can't tell. It depends on the motivation.
There is, this is what I'm saying, that first of all, the ideological raison d'etre for a caliphate in Uganda is very low. Muslims constitute only about 12% of the population. And of that 12%, I can tell you 90% are not, even 98% may be not aspiring for a caliphate. So I think it is an ideologically misguided organization that is incapable of finding the fertile ground in which its seed of struggle can germinate. I think that ADF is actually dead on arrival. And I am very sure that with time...
But must we still call them
what
ADF?
Is ADF?
When was it the president who said that they have been decimated, the ADF, and
actually, that's not true.
With the arrest of Jamil Mukulu,
I should tell you, ADF is very strong in Congo. Uganda government is supposed to deploy troops in Congo to combat ADF there. And
but Andrew, which ADF? Are we talking of the affiliate of the Islamic State, which is now something
Central African province?
Allied Democratic Forces became an affiliate organization of Islamic State.
And rebranded.
Yes.
Under different leadership.
And you see, if you look at Boko Haram, if you look at this group in Mozambique, ADF in Uganda, you can look at Somalia. There's so many Al-Shabaab. There's so many Islamic groups in Mali, in Guinea, in Niger, in Mauritania. These groups have been emerging and they have an inspiration from Islamic State, and they aim to create. The aim is to create a caliphate. So the ADF in Congo is now an affiliate of ISIS, which may give it international attention, but which actually undermines its local legitimacy here in Uganda, and therefore its ability to be an effective fighting force.
Okay.
Okay, maybe Charles, if I may come in, and I want to, maybe if Andrew has information, because I was reading findings by the Institute for Security Studies, I think with the headquarters in South Africa, and they are saying that the November attacks, which they think is a trial run in Kampala, and there are more attacks coming, they suspect that there is a cooperation with the Al-Shabaab, the ISIS for Central African Republic, the new branding of ADF with Al-Shabaab, although ideologically they have that difference, but they have cooperated this time according to them, and they have strengthened funding with the new strategies, including new targets, which we saw in these, yesterday attacks, the targeting now government institutions, government personnel, as compared to before when they were going for weak targets who are ordinary citizens. So is there some truth in that school of thought?
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm saying, that the ADF in Uganda is an affiliate organization of Islamic State, like Al-Shabaab in Somalia is. Also remember that I have seen people comment that Uganda's presence in Somalia is the reason for these attacks, of course, which is misguided because ADF started the struggle in Uganda long before Uganda even thought of ever deploying in Somalia. In 1998-99, ADF used to blast bombs in Kampala. There were no Ugandan troops in Somalia.
We went in 2007.
Then we went in October 2007 after they attacked in July. Yes, July 2007. Isn't that when they...
Around April, July or June?
There was a time they attacked heavily and the president decided to deploy, but I don't think that was the main... That could have been the spark, but I think that with the end of the war in Southern Sudan, Uganda, or President Museveni for that matter, if the two can be used interchangeably, lost his strategic role as the kingpin of the security architecture of this region. And to keep, I think, his alliance with the Americans, he needed something, because previously the whole aim of his strength in the region was that he was the one stopping the spread of Islamic extremism from Khartoum. So he was supporting SPLA. But after the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement of 2005, his role in this region as the security czar was significantly diminished, because now South Sudan had been pacified and was clearly on the path to becoming an independent state. So I think, and at that time there was a lot of piracy in the Gulf of Eden. And that Gulf is a very important place because a lot of trade between Asia and Europe takes place through the Suez Canal, then through the Gulf of Eden. Yeah. But the pirates were threatening that trade. The world powers had deployed massive navies to control the seas. The problem is that to effectively control piracy on the international seas, you need to also control the landing grounds where pirates are able to launch these attacks. So when Uganda deployed in Somalia and was able to control the coasts and the landing grounds, then the problem was solved. If you are a strategist of Museveni's caliber, he must have immediately seen that if we deploy in Somalia, we will become big players in the global in global trade, because global trade was being disrupted by the pirates. I am now occupying the ground on which they launch, and therefore I'm able to stop piracy. And that brought him back into the ambit of the Americans and the British and other world powers as an important player. So I think our presence in Somalia has a lot to do with the President Museveni's strategic positioning in order to attract the love and the diplomatic support and whatever it is, military support, security support of the Western powers. Okay,
I'll come back to Councillor Sarah and Honorable Mapenduzi shortly, but I wanted to bring back Honorable Odongotho. Honorable, the question of whether this is ADF or not is still a question under debate, and some people, when you see especially discussions going on after the blast yesterday, people's police said this is ADF and all that through their spokesperson. And the question is the ADF still, is it still active? To what extent? What is its framework? What's its structure? Must it still be called ADF if it has, its strength has been and presence has been diminished?
I think all what is important to me and to Ugandans to know that yes, ADF is still active to the extent that twin bomb blasts were in Kampala yesterday. I think that is sufficient evidence to demonstrate the activity, the level, the extent of ADF's being active and still being a destabilizing factor in the security and stability of Uganda. You need another day to have a debate on what are the links, and we share what can be shared. But for now, we go with what the government has come out to say this is ADF. If there's somebody who knows more than that, I believe that we can only say that, but we can only hold the same and receive it with all the suspicion. For us, all what we know is ADF is still very active and a threat to Uganda.
Honorable, how about the question of our polarized and lack of consensus in our politics, the polarized nation? You know, the NRM came with the idea of national unity and ensuring that these things of tribalism and that kind of divisionism end. But of course, we know that it has failed to do that successfully. And now we have a situation where we cannot, you know, the country cannot come to a consensus as a nation which says we are going to fight this. What do you think about that? Is that a threat to our national cohesion, national consensus, and therefore the strength to fight, you know, any attack such as this against the nation?
Well, I don't know about other political parties and players in Uganda, what they stand for, but I am very convinced and I know about the NRM. Patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and I don't know about what others are saying. NRM stands for the politics of interest as opposed to the politics of identity.
We hear you.
And trading at the NRM. Now, politics of interest as opposed to politics of identity is a big debate. And that is a matter for Ugandans to continue making choice about which one is better. For you, Charles, the matter of cohesion, and I will request the political actors in this country, at least we can copy a leaf, can copy and borrow from Kenya. When there was that Garissa shooting and bombing, Raila Odinga, who the former prime minister, who was in opposition, called on the president, Uhuru Kenyatta. And time for fighting terrorism like this is when we should show our patriotism and show that we have one single interest to make Uganda secure. Anybody who wants to lead this country should come out to portray that the security of this country is number one, priority number one. All other interests would be secondary. So any politics that celebrates the killing of any Ugandan, that celebrates the bombing, that celebrates the instability, that is the politics of identity, which, you know, that school of political theory I don't belong to. But if you say NRM has failed, that is according to you. But I believe that NRM has succeeded, and that is the reason that they are here for the last 35 years or more. And they will be here for a little more years because of the persuasion that has been put forward that politics of interest is better and greater than politics of identity, where which religion, which tribe, who is my leader, you look at what is the interest of Uganda. And I think this is an area that NRM has scored highly. And I would want to call upon Ugandans. This is not a time to politicize. The fight against terrorism is here to test our patriotismness. How patriotic are we, and how united are we? And political leaders should take the lead. I do not know how many have come up to condemn I also may not know how many are there celebrating quietly and looking for ways to blame government, even where it is very hard to blame government, even where the security forces, the joint security agencies are working day and night to make sure that this country, Uganda, remains secure and stable.
Thank you very much for now, Honorable. There is the question of the amount of effect this is causing on the economy, which is just trying to rise up to start realigning itself after the COVID hit of 2 years running. And I want us to touch on that as well. So I don't know who wants to start on that. Okay, the lady, and then Honorable Mapinduzi, and then Andrew. On the effect of this on tourism, there is the of course on trade, of course on the tourists who come from outside. Now they are looking down upon us and saying this country is not safe.
You know, terrorism is a threat to peace, stability, development, protection and enjoyment of human rights, as well as the general social development. So once terror alerts are posted on a country, we need to check with the travel agencies how many people cancel their visits. Just before we came in the studio, we are talking to a friend who said that if there is another terror attack, I will not come for Christmas. I mean, that's the obvious reaction. I had somebody traveling from Kapchora, and so their bus was turned away in Mtiana, and so he was saying, I can't come to Kampala, can't we meet in Mukono? So business is disrupted at every level. And those are some of the salient achievements of these terrorists. I don't know whether they have an agenda or not. As much as anybody can claim to have an agenda or a motivation, terrorism is not justifiable whatsoever anywhere in the world. So they disrupt international trade and business. They create an immediate political risk. The businesses, I saw some of the business people interviewed yesterday. They were in tears when they were told to close. Yet it was evident that their lives were in danger, imminent danger. But the impact of lockdown on the people. You know, when you tell people close your business, the first image that comes is the suffering people went through during lockdown. And the failure of our government to mitigate some of this suffering. So yes, you know, people are in pain. We have inflation, skyrocketing petrol prices. We have increasing food costs. We are going into a festive season. I really hope that there will be no other attack in Kampala. It's very damaging to the economy.
Honorable Mapinduzi.
Well, I had wanted to raise something before you brought in this, and please allow me to say this. It's related to the claim by ISIS. I think two angles. One, to some extent, the claim is a bit diversionary. Because the moment we begin to pursue that line, we will begin to lose the bigger picture of dealing with our internal issues and trying to. So, yes, ISIS can make their claim, but again, just as the Honorable Minister put it, you know, ISIS would also want to appear globally, to be having, you know, their presence everywhere, and they would want to claim anything that happens. But I think since government is saying that ADF is responsible for this, then government needs to do what it takes to penetrate whatever network they have got and deal with it, and then the claim by ISIS will not be there, because looks like ISIS is beginning to behave like a major, you know, donor to different groups that cause a problem in different countries. And if that is the case, then I think we need to internally deal with the problem and ISIS will not have anybody, any group to support and claim responsibility. That's what I wanted to say. But coming to the question you asked, the kind of picture that we saw yesterday, within a short period, the central business district looked abandoned, and you see the pain and businesses closed, and then you also see the panic. Everyone wanted to leave town, and several people were making phone calls and trying to find whether their loved ones are okay and how they should leave and move. I personally received a call from Gulu and said, why don't you come back home and until the situation is okay? That's the kind of fear these guys are inflicting. And we are coming, we have an economy that has been staggering as a result of COVID. And so this impact is not good. But also globally, I saw statements issued by almost every embassy in this country, expressing sympathy, but also, trying to caution their citizens to be a lot more careful. And that has far-reaching implications, because that also includes advising their citizens to be careful when they want to come to Uganda, because they think, they're not sure what is going to happen. So those who are coming to do business will definitely be, scared of the tourists who would want to come. Right now, tourists had started coming, and with this kind of experience, it's going to affect. So again, it has far-reaching impact on our economy. And I think, but on the other side, Ugandans also have a role to play in creating an environment that much as we have these occurrences, still, because the moment we all decide to succumb and we show that sign of defeatism, that we are defeated and things are not okay, and people begin to abandon their business, and then it will paralyze the economy. And I think we need to be careful on how to do that. But the biggest part is the assurance from the security agencies that they're doing everything it takes to guarantee the safety and the security of the citizens, but also how they work with the citizens. Because I saw in the evening, I was driving back home, and there were so many roadblocks, and how they approach you very crudely. And then, coming in and, flashing their torches, and who are you, where are you going? And I think there should be some level of professionalism, because that reaction in
now just imagine if you're a terrorist, you come with your torch as a policeman, I detonate my bomb, you die.
You just stop me, and you're flashing, and you're not even putting on mask. And that's why sometimes Ugandans run away from providing information, or have this kind of impression that is not very good. So I think the security agencies have a duty to begin to show that image, where citizens very positively want to step forward and provide information. So it's two-way.
It's important. I'll tell you, I think 2 weeks ago, I was coming out of, I think out of the show here, and while going back around Bukoto, just that corner, after when you're coming from Hardware World, and between Hardware World and that place they call Nsimbinzi Wome, the place of Bidandi Sali. A car was coming, and it was moving at about 20-30 kilometers per hour. Then another one came racing, I think at over 100. I just saw a flash, and I had a bang from behind, and the car which was in front spun on the road about 3 times and went and parked on the roadside. This one disappeared. There is a valley on the side. And I thought of going to help. And then I saw some people coming towards me. I had to leave. My mind went straight to, now I have to go to police. I have to start making a statement. I don't know whether they are armed. They could be confused in that moment. They could shoot thinking that I am the one who knocked.
I think you took the right decision, because.
But it pained me when I went home.
It did.
I was going home, I turned to go home. Something told me, I'm feeling so guilty. Then I turned and said, let me go and report to police. And police was now the one that took a decision to call on emergency that they should
You know,
rush
why
there.
I'm saying you took the right decision. I have seen people who come, you know, with a good heart to help, and then how they suffer later. It has a lot to do with how do you deal with people who provide information, people who should help you to get, you know, the facts clear. And
Yes,
so
practical witness protection
people
measures.
fear what comes
Yeah.
after. Because
They
if
are
you were
victimized.
you know,
Legitimate fear.
Yeah, so that is where we have a problem.
Andrew, how do you, we are just coming out of this. We need to talk to the effect of this attack on the economy, on tourism. How do we get out of this? Is it easy?
Well, first of all, I think that it is not what has happened today, but what is going to happen tomorrow and over a series of weeks or months that will have the decisive impact. So let me create for you the likely scenarios. Scenario one is that the terrorists have had enough time to infiltrate Kampala, establish many cells where they can make bombs, and the speed at which they are able to launch these attacks is higher than the speed at which the security services can break down the cells and apprehend them. So that means we have 1 year of bombs going off every 2 weeks. Of course, there will be serious disruption there. It will increase government surveillance, it will reduce tourism, it will reduce tourism, it will reduce travel, it will disrupt economic life. The other is that the terrorists, their ability to organize and launch these bombs within Uganda is limited by two factors. One, the kind of social infrastructure supporting the actions is limited because they have a very narrow ideological base. And two, the state has a higher capacity to penetrate different levels of society and therefore infiltrate the terrorists themselves and apprehend them. And I think that last option is the one. So that we could even be reaching the tipping point. They started with a bus, now they moved to Columbia there, they attacked something, and finally now they have come and done something in the middle of the city. This could be maybe the last kicks of a dying horse. We don't know. So the impact of these actions can only be seen over the next 2-3 months because we are involved in an arms race between the government and the terrorists. The terrorists trying to be able to dramatize their cause with these kinds of attacks, and the government trying to neutralize them and stop them from doing it. And the effects therefore will be determined over the next so many months. I have absolute confidence in the government of Uganda because you see Uganda enjoys one advantage. It has gone through these cycles of terrorist attacks over such a long period of time, and I think we have developed, the state has developed the skills and tactics of breaking down terrorist cells. Remember, Uganda also has gone through a lot of insurgency.
But can't we also be complacent, Andrew? Because, you know, in my language, we have a saying that when a woman who is getting used to delivering at home, you can die on a 9th birth or delivery.
You see, you need to understand, Sarah, if ever you are going to analyze Museveni's government, you see, when we are going to talk about the future, I don't have any evidence about the future. So I can never rely on that evidence. So how do I make projections about the future? I must look at
what has happened.
The past performance, and then two, I must compare across, let's say, historic time and geographic space. And I always tell my friends that to understand the government of Uganda is to know that the government of Uganda is not like the government you will find in Nigeria or Zambia or Ghana or Kenya. It's not. What is the government of Uganda? We need to understand it in its specificity. This is a government led by an organization called NRM. This organization went to the bush and fought a protracted people's war. They started as a very small group in a rural area at the grassroots, and slowly by slowly built capacity and dismembered a state from above. What do we know about governments of this nature? We find them in China, in Cuba, in Mozambique, in Angola, in Rwanda, in Ethiopia, in Eritrea, in Algeria, in Guinea-Bissau, in Nicaragua, perhaps Russia. What are the main characteristics of these governments, and what do we know about them? So whether I'm going to discuss a transition, I'm going to discuss the response to terrorism or to counterinsurgency, I just look at both its history within Uganda and the characteristics of such kinds of governments in Vietnam. How do they act? So when I look at that, the history of Uganda, and if I compare to similar governments in other parts of the world and even within Africa, these are highly durable governments. Once they capture power and consolidate after 5 years, rarely have we seen them lose power. Where they have lost power, like in Nicaragua and Guinea-Bissau, they lost it for about 10 years or 4 years in Guinea-Bissau, 10 years in Nicaragua, and they came back and they have the Sandinistas are still there. The guy who founded this party is always the political philosopher, the military commander, and the political head. Power is centralized in the presidency, personalized in his hands. It creates such a situation where you say, if he's not there, can the thing hold? But whether it is Mao who died, or Stalin, or Samora Machel, or Castro when he retired, or Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, they always tend to have a peaceful transfer of power. And then power shifts from an individual to a college of peers. You know, they have this ability to build a security and a political infrastructure that are fused, and therefore they are able to penetrate society so deeply that they can easily control society from exercising activities that can overthrow them. But that's why they don't lose power. Another advantage they have is that, in fact, even when they suffer from prolonged economic atrophy, you can see the system in Zimbabwe or North Korea or Cuba, even when they suffer prolonged economic atrophy, poverty increases or things like that, they still retain the ability to hold power. Because many governments, when they face a fiscal crisis, an economic crisis, it sparks off a fiscal restraints, of revenue restraints. They are unable to deliver on what they are promising, and then they tend to face a political crisis. But these ones do not. So many people, I feel, underestimate the kind of system that Museveni has. It is not by accident that Museveni has fought civil wars across every part of Uganda, in eastern Uganda, in western Uganda, in central Uganda and Itongwa, in the West Nile, in northern Uganda for so many years, and prevailed. And even in those moments when the war in northern Uganda delayed, I felt that he did not finish it because it was functional for his politics at that time, and when it ceased to be functional, he ended it. You see, so this is a unique form of government that is found in very few countries, and you need to understand its characteristics. They are very security sensitive. They are very security sensitive, and I can tell you, ADF is poking them, and by poking them, it is going to awaken their security antenna, and their survival depends on that obsession with security. That is why they seem to be immune to military coups. They seem to be immune to effective counterinsurgency challenges. The very, very, and the exceptional circumstances where you have an external power like America, when it was bankrolling the UNITA and the Renamo in Angola and Mozambique respectively, or in Nicaragua when they supported the Sandinistas, because there you had a world power pouring too much in resources, but even then it could not succeed. Okay. So I think that let us not lose sight of the fact that we have a government in place whose foundation is in that sphere. In fact, I think that they have invited Museveni to play. It is like Museveni, they are playing on his home ground, where his confidence are very high. I think that the best way to challenge him is maybe in democratic politics, because there he can easily panic. It's not an area where he has high levels of specialization, but in this one of security, he's so good at it.
Sarah, response, you want to cut in at that point? We need to start thinking of ending. We are left with under 10 minutes, and we need to start thinking of, we need to start making our final comments on way forward, and from whichever angle you look at it. Of course, there are a number of issues, dynamics involved in the in this whole thing. There is the question of informal transport structures, like the borders, for example, have become law unto themselves. When you follow some of these discussions, people are saying, when you're talking about security, disorganization of the city, planning, borders come to mind in almost all these discussions, and nobody can touch them. They are now part. They have now, captured the state themselves, and they are an entity that itself poses a great risk to the nation. So, but we will maybe have time, and as we continue having these discussions, we will be exploring all these issues. But your last word on this way forward.
Well, touching on the issue of border that you've mentioned, after the murder or assassination of Assistant DPP Joan Kagezi, there were calls for the regulation of border, and they later on did start an exercise of attempting to regulate the sector. But border has big players, including one of our panelists here. I think Andrew, I don't know, you have a stake in Safeboard or something?
No. Tugende.
Okay, Tugende, yes. So the border now has very big stakeholders, including the old man.
Actually, I should tell you this. In fact, contrary to what people think, my grandson Daniel Kalenaki wrote a beautiful column on the problem of borders. But like all human beings, he said there are very big players in the border business who have stifled a reform and regulation of the sector. So I wrote to him.
The big players included Andrew Mwenda.
Yes, but here is the problem. Here is the problem. There is only one big player in the border market, I think. Okay, let me say two. There is a company called Varma, which is the the local representative or agent for the Bajaji bike.
Yeah.
Now, borders, about 98% of them prefer the Bajaji bike because it is fuel efficient, it has many spare parts, it's so common, its resale value is very high. So if you ask in a border what border do you want, they will ask for a Boxer. So that is one player. But they are so unconnected to the state that they don't even have any kind of negotiating capability within the government. The second group that has some capacity is us, Tugende. So the outside of Tugende and Varma, the other people in the border industry are small itemized groups. Either it is Charlse Odongotho, who has 2 bikes or 3, he has given one to his cousin, another one to a relative or a neighbor, and they are riding for him. And one of the problems of regulation is that the lack of big players. Now, like us together, we have about 32,000 bikes and about 18,000 who have finished their loans, because we sell it to you on hire purchase or on a loan basis. We give you a bike, you pay without you giving us security, without you paying any down payment, you pay us over a period of, say, 20 to 24 months. But you can say we are big players. So, if you wanted to control borders and you came to Tugende, because you are a big organization, you can have effective regulation. You can say, you have to, like us now, we have to ensure that every rider has a driver's license. So he's been trained. We know his address,
Actually,
because you have to collect money.
Now that I know is part of Tugende, I have a real discussion with him, because
you are also part of.
I'm not part of any group, but I have issues with them. Thank you, sir. Now I know
we'll have the discussion of
yes,
TV.
But
if you want regulation, so I was telling Kalenaki, the problem of regulation in Uganda is how do you regulate about 1.2 million owners of bikes where there is no one centrally owned? I mean, they are individuals. If there was one company owning 100 bikes that are on the road, it is easy to impose discipline on that company because its risks are very high. But
how do you regulate the drivers? No, we.
This is what I'm saying. Because
the government.
It is close to impossible in today's Uganda, because they are small atomized individuals, one person, one bike, maximum 2-3 bikes. How do you create a central information system for control? But if you come to Tugende, just hold a second, Charles. If you come to Tugende, you know you can impose discipline on us, because for us, remember we have to collect money from these people on a weekly basis. So we have to know where they sleep. We have to know their family. We have to know their friends. We have to find a way to reach them. So regulation becomes
if you continue explaining, I'm going to give you an invoice, because now you are doing advertisement for.
Actually, the sad thing is that we don't need advertising, because right now we have more than 7,000 applications. People who want bikes. We don't have the cash to supply. So this is dangerous for me.
I'm going to invoice you.
But I want to agree with him, because when you look at the border sector, it's difficult to regulate, because you may find one bike is run by about 4 people. There is the owner, then there is someone, the owner can ride up to around midday. When he gets about 20,000, he's reluctant, he has finished the day. Then another one gets on a road toll, and by about 6 p.m. he has got 20 or 15,000, is okay. Then somebody picks in the night. So it becomes difficult, because you have about 4 or 5 people operating the same bicycle in a day, and so you
multiply that by 1 million, because we have more than 1 million bikes in Uganda.
Yes. Wow. And they are the second highest employer next to agriculture.
True. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. So it's a big sector,
actually,
but also a sector.
The border sector contributes. Total revenues are about 18 to 20 trillion shillings in a year, and that is close to 10% of Uganda's GDP.
Wow.
Yes, but they are also prone to being used by criminals.
Yes.
And that is for me my interest right now. The economic contribution to the GDP will be later, and we shall invite Andrew to come and explain.
And tell us their contribution. And maybe Honorable Minister will tell us, because I still see him online. I have, in that report by the Institute for Security Studies, they say some of the new methods of funding for these new terror groups, especially the ones targeting Kampala, include chain of restaurants. So you can imagine, and to me that is more scary, if these people have started establishing chain of restaurants where people can easily go, eat, and then they decide when to blow them up, and it is easier for them because the funds cannot be easily traced. So the other gist, other than rejecting transport and eliminating criminality, especially in our border sector, is how to deal with terrorist financing. How do we get information? How do we trace these people? How do we break them up?
Okay. Unless
you control those two, the terror.
Let's get a way forward from the Honorable, and we close. Honorable Odongotho.
Thank you, Charles.
Way forward.
Yes, the way forward is continue making the call for Ugandans to cooperate with government. We want every Ugandan to give support to the state agencies, the security agencies. The fear about being victimized, or fear that you will be mistreated. I think when you weigh the two, saving this country and the fear that you'll be reprimanded or mistreated, should be resolved in favor of security and a stable nation, Uganda. Our security agencies are very professional, leave alone a few isolated cases of overzealousness or, some weaknesses. But generally speaking, they are doing a great job. What I know is that government has facilities to face these terrorists head on, and all we need is the support from Ugandans, that everyone should be able to. This is not about finger pointing right now, but to be able to work together for a safe Uganda, keep our borders safe, keep Uganda safe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much, Andrew Mwenda. Thanks a lot, Honorable Mapenduzi Ojara, and thanks a lot, Council Sarah Birete. Thanks a lot to the producers and the technical team here that ensures that you, the viewer out there, gets this program every Wednesday at 10 p.m. To those that lost their lives innocently in the bomb blast yesterday, our hearts go out to the family, to the bereaved family. It's a terrible time, but let's be vigilant. Let's check. Let's be our neighbors' watch, and let's follow and ensure that we do the best to keep ourselves, our neighborhoods, and the country safe. We don't need to lose young lives, especially innocently, and let's have a safe country. COVID still exists, remember, and so go and vaccinate, take that jab, and ensure that you maintain the the standard operating procedures. Until next week, God bless you, bye-bye, take care.
Grow together with one of Uganda's largest companies. Apply for MTN shares for as low as 100,000 Uganda shillings. And when you apply using MTN Mobile Money, you get 10 free extra shares for every 100 shares you apply for. Dial *165*65# or use the MyMTN app to apply now. The terms and conditions of the offer and other important information are set out in the prospectus. For assistance, visit any MTN service center or Stanbic Bank branch countrywide or a licensed broker.
Join us from Monday to Friday for Good Morning Uganda with me, Felix Nkunda.
Priscilla Nalwoda.
Robert Chirabo.
Molen Kenyana.
Ruben Bimba. With all the morning's essentials.
Including the very latest in news, traffic,
weather and sports.
Live on TV and across all our social media platforms. #UBCJMU.
Hope you'll be setting your alarms, cause we are looking forward to seeing you then.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Is fighting corruption and fighting laissez-faire attitude. I don't care attitude. You are in charge of government property. You have our vaccines, which we want you to go and vaccinate the animals to quickly curtail the spread of FMD, such that our beef and our dairy products can be credible in the regional and international markets. And some people are playing games with selling the vaccines. Please, 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 please. There is a serious operation going on, if I may alert you, involving security personnel to crack down on people. And I wouldn't wish to see this happen to our professional and sector staff, whether it's sub-county or district. When we give you vaccines, when we give you spray pumps, please account for them. Account for them. Be transparent, because when you succeed, we also succeed. And we will have the ground to advocate for more resources into the sector. Resources now will